to what I read in the month of April. I almost said May. We're going to go over what I read this month, my thoughts and reviews and recommendations. Let's get on with the video. Alright, so I am just going to hop on my Goodreads here. Honestly, when you're like 5-6 books in at the end of the month, you're like, what did I read this month? First book we're going to be talking about is The Highly Loved and Admired. It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. Colleen Hoover is an amazing writer. Her stuff is very easy to read and very relatable, so I think that the concepts the very deep and sometimes dark concepts that she throws at us were much easier to digest. This book follows our main character, Lily. She is a very hard-working woman, and she knows what she wants in life, so she lives in Boston, which is really fun to read because I feel like a lot of books usually take place in New York City or London. You never really hear Boston. We go back and forth through different timelines in this book, from when she was younger, through her journal. They're written like journal entries, and then to present day of her life in Boston. This book kind of follows this pattern that happens in her life, more so revolved around relationships, has deep topics about domestic abuse and what a relationship should and shouldn't look like. There's actually a lot of trigger warnings for this book, but I have been telling all my friends that if you're in any type of relationship or want to be in a relationship, I mean, that could even be a friendship, it doesn't have to be a romantic sort of thing, you should read this book. I have never read a book in one night. I was like, I'm gonna read, I started it maybe at like 11 p.m. at night, and I'm like, I'm just gonna read like a chapter or two. This was my first Colleen Hoover book as well, so like I didn't really know her writing. So I was like, I'm just gonna read like the first chapter or two and go to bed. Well, it's 6 a.m. I finished the book. I also like don't cry when I read books. I didn't cry when reading this, but I felt like I wanted to cry. She really makes you, like, it messes with your head, and maybe because I read it in one night, it really, really messed with me. And it impacted me a lot, and it's a book that I think about a lot. Okay, now let's get on to more of the fun side of Colleen Hoover. Don't get me wrong, she still messes with your feelings, but that is the book Verity. I absolutely loved this book. The first chapter of this book had my jaw to the floor because I was like, wow, she came out of the gate swinging. This book is a thriller romance, and I wouldn't let that deter you from reading it because I don't love super scary things, but I really enjoyed reading this book. So it follows our main character, Lowen, who is a writer. And she stumbles upon this person and this opportunity to write this book for Verity Crawford, who has been in a terrible accident and cannot no longer write her series because Verity's an author. And they contract Lowen to write the rest of her series because that series is so popular. It's like Sarah J. Maas only writing like 2 books and never giving us the ending we deserve and want. So she goes with Verity's husband up to their house. I believe it's in upstate New York or Vermont. And she goes through her office and learns a bit more about Verity and her backstory and how she should finish out these books in a way that her fans and Verity deserve. While at this house, Lowen, going through her office, uncovers a multitude of secrets and things that need to be solved, but we go through this kind of like, should we get into their business? Should we stay out of their business? The husband, obviously, is falling in love with Lowen. Lowen has feelings for him. So it follows this like epic journey. So it really is like a mystery thriller. It was a fun book to read. I absolutely enjoyed every bit of it. There are some really just like cruel parts of it that I was like, oh my god, like what am I reading? But I really, really enjoyed reading it. Plus the ending is just like, it leaves you on a cliffhanger, and you just like, it's one of those things that's like, you interpret it how you want to. And even though I hate that, I absolutely love that because it sparks conversation. So people that have read Verity, I'm like, what do you think? The next two books I listened to on Audible because people actually recommended I listen to them that way. I bet you can guess the author I'm talking about. Because of the way she writes her books, they are perfect to listen to. And that is Taylor Jenkins Reid's books. So the first one I listened to was Daisy Jones and the Six. This book was a ride. And I guess you could equate that to the amount of drugs they did in this book. They did a lot of drugs. It takes place in like the later 60s, early 70s. So that gives you like reference for what was going on at that time. A lot of sex and drugs. Basically, if you don't know. And so this follows Daisy Jones and the Six. Daisy Jones is a singer, the Six is a band, and as you can tell by the title, eventually the two combine, and it goes over just things that they had to work through, and the time period, and addiction, and love, and rock and roll, and it was a fun thing to listen to. It was heartbreaking. It was exciting. It was so dramatic. So dramatic. Yeah, I found myself actually getting bored sometimes through the book because I'm like, well, here we go again. Like, who's gonna be doing drugs, or how Daisy's a bit of a nutcase. So, like, oh, like, what's she gonna do to ruin this now? I really, really liked the ending and the spin that Taylor put on it. I think that it made it kind of more sentimental at the end. So I really, really enjoyed that part of it. So the ending was great. But I do feel like at points I was like, okay, like, where's this going? Like, are we just gonna keep on doing drugs and touring and ruining our lives? It wasn't that it was bad, I just got bored during it, and the next book that I listened to of hers, I loved way more. So when I'm comparing just like the stories, because they take place sort of around the same time, I really just didn't like Daisy Jones and the Six as much as I thought they would. But that's what happens when we hype up books in this world. You end up not liking them. Alright, I'm so excited to talk about this one, and I'm going to redeem Taylor Jenkins Reid with this recommendation. That book is Malibu Rising. I, thought I would hate this book because I thought I was just going to follow some snobby rich kids, and I didn't care. That's kind of what Daisy Jones and the Six was. It was just following privileged people who thought they could just waste their lives away. This was not the case. It follows 4 famous siblings and a party that they're throwing. But they alternate timelines. So during the book, we see all 4 siblings' different point of views, and also it goes from like the party to like the past, and like secrets get uncovered during the party, revelations happen. You fall in love basically with the main character, Nina, who I absolutely love. But you fall in love with all the Riva siblings, and you kind of find out how much of a rough life they actually had, and that fame didn't come easy, even though they have a very famous dad. I can't tell you anymore because that's the beauty of the book, is uncovering everything. And I watched a lot of reviews and read a lot of reviews about this book beforehand, so much that I did not want to listen to or read it because I thought it was just going to be sort of like Daisy Jones and the Six ended up being, is just people running around Los Angeles thinking they're hot shit, basically. This was not the case. This book tore my heart out. I read this book, I listened to it in a day and a half. That's how much it impacted me, and it's a book like It Ends With Us that I think about even now, and I definitely recommend reading this. If you're going to read any of Taylor Jenkins Reid's books, it is Malibu Rising. Clockwork Angel by Cassandra Clare. This is the first of the prequels to the Mortal Instrument series. So this book follows the ancestors of the characters in the Mortal Instrument series, which was very fun to read about, kind of like the origin stories of a lot of those characters. Our main characters in this are Tessa, Will, and Jem. Tessa is, from what we know in this book, not a shadow hunter. She's not a warlock. We don't know what she is, actually. She doesn't even know what she is. We're kind of on a self-discovery journey to find out who she is, but there's a lot of side plots, and in any Shadow Hunter's novel, there is a villain. This book took me a long time to get into. I wanted to read the series by how she released them, because I know in the next couple books in the Mortal Instrument series, there are some spoilers, and I wanted to know the backstory before I dove further into Clary and Jace's story. I love the different types of magic that is used in this book. It makes you feel like you're still in the Shadowhunter world without having the main characters of Clary and Jace. Also, what I love about this book is it's set in the 1800s in London. What more could you want? That's just the best. London, 1800s. Sign me up. They don't have cars and electronics. There's carriages, and because you've read the Mortal Instruments books, coming back in time, you really get to the roots of what being a shadow hunter is. So the fandom is real in this book. Oh my god. Oh. I have the book here. My next book is The Atlas Six. I thought I was really going to enjoy this book. People have sung its praises all over the internet. So I was very excited to get my hands on this, especially knowing that The Atlas Paradox is coming out in October, I believe. This book follows 6 main characters, and they all have unique magical abilities. Atlas, who's in charge of the secret Alexandrian society, comes to all of them and asks them to compete to study in the Alexandrian society, and then whoever wins, 5 of them will be selected to join the society. This book was very character-based, and I'm finding that I struggle with books that are character-based because I really like strong plots. The chapters are told from one of the 6 perspectives. This book was extremely hard to read. Her prose is beautiful, but boring at times. And maybe I'm just incompetent, but I really thought I was gonna like this more than I did. I really enjoyed some of the characters, 2 being Libby and Tristan. I liked their imperfect nature. This book has so many dark academia feels, which was probably my favorite part of it. You even see in the cover they have illustrations, and it gets better. You turn the page, there's these beautiful illustrations of the characters, and I thought this was very unique. I've never read a book like this because it shows us what these characters look like, and we don't have to make them up in our head. That was a cool little add-on I loved. The ending of this book makes me want to read the next one, so I definitely will be sticking with this series, but I will say I just wasn't as impressed as I thought I was going to be. I didn't fall over head over heels for this one, which was a little disappointing. The last book of the month is The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. If you thought I could go a whole month without reading sci-fi, you're wrong. This has been on my TBR for quite some time. This is a classic, and I knew it was super short. This book follows a couple characters, but mainly Arthur and his alien compadre, Forward Prefect. And this book is a satirical space adventure. It was funny. It was, you could get the old humor in this because it's such an old classic. It took me longer to read than I thought because there's not really a plot to it. It's just a lot of jokes, and there's actually a huge deeper meaning to this book if you think about it, the best way to equate it is, like, I'm sure everyone has seen SpongeBob episodes or even kids shows in general. Sometimes jokes hit adults differently than it hits the kids, that goes over their head. That's this book. Perfect to read to a child, great for an adult to read and laugh and think deeply about. I know that there are other volumes to this, but I believe that this is as far as I will go in this guide to the galaxy. But it was a lot of fun to read, and I think that if anyone loves space and sci-fi, they should definitely read this classic because it is a staple. Alright, I believe that was 7 books total this month that I've read. There were some good, some bad, so hopefully everyone got a taste of both and you can pick out what you've liked. If you've read any of these, I want to talk to you about them. I do not elaborate on books a lot because I don't want to ruin it for anyone, and I want you to make that decision for yourself if you want to read them. But if you have read these or want to read these, let's talk about it. If you have any recommendations, I'm always taking them. So leave them down in the comments, and we will see you next month. Bye! What no one has seen is the beast off camera. The real Atlas 6.
Okay.
I'm actually
Sounds
currently filming my book video, so.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, bye.
Love you, bye!
Love you, bye.